when we speak about SAR Gilani Saab, we cannot forget the Delhi University. Cannot forget the Delhi University professors' contribution or the travel. All of them went together as friends and comrades. Like in that, Sai Baba and Hani Babu and none other than Professor Nandita Narain when she was Duta president, and always stood by SAR Gilani Saab and in the struggle also. So I think I invite Professor Nandita Narain to share her experiences and way forward.
Thank you, Rais. So certainly I echo heartily every word that Jagmohanji has just placed before you, is the way in which I think the only tribute we can give to Gilani is to take up the issues dear to his heart. In fact, I met him about a month and a half before he passed away. On the 5th of September, I met him. And I really found him heartbroken after what had happened in Kashmir after the 5th of August. There was something which had really, the never say die spirit, which he always had, through all his travails, through all the tortures, through all the assassination attempts, and the stigmatization of his family and him in society. He faced all those challenges. But I think this somehow affected him very deeply. Even though the Kashmiri people had been suffering for so long, I think this was a terrible shock for him. I mean, that's what I felt. And I think that we cannot afford to let the people of this country forget and, invisibilize Kashmir. In fact, in some sense, Kashmir has come to the rest of India, as had been warned by so many of us, that if we allow that to be invisibilized, then, we are next. And this is what is happening in the whole country. I remember that Gilani, as a very young PhD scholar of Arabic in our university, and this basic dispensation, I think there are really two kinds of people in this world. I mean, I would not like to polarize it that much, but really, those who are worried about themselves and those who worry about others. And Gilani clearly fell into the latter category. He came to me dozens of times. I was an elected member of the Executive Council. He came to me so many times, always with somebody else's problem. I had many people coming to me with their own issues, my promotion, my appointment, etc. He never uttered a word about himself and what he aspired for, or asked for help in any manner for himself. It was always somebody else who was facing injustice, somebody else who was so talented and was not being recognized. And that is one of the qualities that impressed me about his life. I was shocked. I mean, like everybody in Delhi University was shocked when we heard this, announcement that he'd been arrested in 2001. And frankly, a lot of people believed what the newspapers were planting, because we were not used to. It had been happening with other people, but never to what we call people like us, our own colleagues. So, it was difficult to swallow that there can be this whole narrative built up by the Indian state, which is swallowed hook, line, and sinker and presented like that, lies from the beginning to the end in the newspapers, including the fact that he had confessed, so-called confession had been made. When some teachers went and met him in Tihar jail, then only we came to know that he has not confessed. He is not guilty and he would like us to fight it out for him. I heard a little video of Gilani's a little before the program started, in which he was very unhappy about the fact that the DUTA, Delhi University Teachers Association, did not take up his case in the way in which it should have. He's right. Delhi University Teachers Association is a multi-party organization in which the predominant voice is from the BJP and the Congress. And even those within the left were a lot of people were reluctant. They didn't see things very clearly. And I think it's really soon after that, when 2002 February happened in Gujarat, that people really woke up and saw what is happening in this country. At that time, one of the things that POTA did was to make people guilty by association. That is something that was and has now sort of become a fine-tuned way of establishing guilt. You know somebody, okay. And so here we were told that, okay, you knew Gilani. Somebody else who met him in the library and would associate with him. So you're also guilty. So he was also taken away. There was a scholar from Jordan. And then crosses were marked. You know, there were Muslim professors' houses had crosses and chalk on them. I mean, it was a terrifying time for people. They were not used to it. Now we seem to have got used to this, that, you know, we can get the midnight knock anytime and anyone can be taken away. So those were the, you know, the times. At that time, this is the kind of atmosphere that there was. And when the trial court judgment came, that is when a lot of people's eyes opened, because they could see in that judgment, whatever evidence we were told that there is a lot of evidence against him. But when we read that, we found that this is a joke. This is not even a joke. You know, the kind of evidence they said, which some sentence in Kashmiri to his nephew, which was about causes, and that is being interpreted by some sabziwala as, you know, somebody's being asked to translate it who doesn't know a word of Kashmiri, and they translate it in a manner in which, you know, he laughed, so he's guilty, and he's clearly talking about the parliament attack. It was absurd. And that is when his lawyer, Nandita Haksar, people like Rona Wilson, and a whole lot of other people, I was approached by Nandita Haksar, and we gladly became part of this campaign for his release, and we took exhibitions from here to there. Mercifully for us, in 2004, he was exonerated by the High Court, and then that was upheld by the Supreme Court. And as I was telling somebody this morning, that it is only after that we started looking at Afzal Guru's case and found that his, you know, the entire evidence was extremely flimsy. There was no evidence against him. And his letter to the Supreme Court saying that it was one Davinder Singh, who was in the Special Task Force of Kashmir, who had approached him, where he was a surrendered militant. He had to report every week to the STF camp. And he was in no position to say no to them. There was all kinds of history of torture and blackmail, all kinds of things there as well. And that Davinder Singh is the one who asked him to take some people to Kashmir and, to Delhi, and to get a house and you know, car arranged for them and so on. And that was never investigated by the Indian government. We kept asking for a white paper. And the entire judgment rested on the fact that some collective conscience of this country has to be satisfied, not based on evidence at all. So our voices were voices in the wilderness. And subsequently, we found that, you know, he was quietly taken away and hanged in 2013. And that was another very traumatic experience. And the protesters were, again, few and far between. In some senses, even talking about Afzal Guru was evidence of your being an anti-national. How can you even discuss the case? How can you raise a finger against the Supreme Court? I mean, if you're, for example, any citizen, but if you're a law student, are you not going to discuss all these cases? You have to. I mean, that's your job, that's your duty. So the entire narrative was turned around into, you know, what is it that you're allowed to discuss, and what is it that you're allowed to examine, and what you can't examine or talk about. So in this manner, you know, initially it was Kashmiri Muslims who were very easily demonized, because there are communal fault lines in our society. And there is this whole, you know, notion about, you know, Kashmiri terrorism built up. And there has been a history of militancy as well. And there's been so much which, you know, can be used to demonize, you know, one part of your country. And after that, we find that there has been demonizing of, you know, the tribals, or that had been going on in any case. And as I was saying in the morning again, that corporate loot was one of the reasons why you needed to demonize. You needed an enemy, you needed to divide people, you needed to divert their attention so that you could quietly carry on your loot. So while the tribal mineral-rich areas were being looted, you had to demonize the tribals who were protesting. So you had Operation Green Hunt. And then those who were speaking up for them, those voices of intellectuals and human rights activists, they had to be silenced. So you had Binayak Sen, you had Sai Baba, who had to be put away. And in fact, in Sai Baba, in the judgment convicting Sai Baba, it is said very clearly, there's no evidence of any violent incident in which he may have been involved, but he is part of a group which was hindering development in the tribal areas. Whose development? Whose notion of development? So these are things which are not even questioned anymore. If you want to have a meeting to discuss Sai Baba, you're under scrutiny, you're threatened. Those who fix meetings for us were threatened by the police, and so on. So that has been catching up with us. Subsequently, Dalit intellectuals, those who, lawyers, human rights defenders, Sudha Bharadwaj, Gadling, who was Sai Baba's lawyer, and a whole lot of people who are now called the Bhima Koregaon 16. So it's coming closer and closer to us. And now it is anybody, the liberals, all dissenters, rape victims become the perpetrators. Their families are now the accused, and they have to defend themselves. And everybody, in a sense, the entire country is being demonized. So it is, we are clearly in the grip of this terrible situation. And I think it's a person like S.A.R. Gilani who actually, in some senses personified those solidarities, solidarities cutting across different boundaries, which is something that we need to learn from and emulate in these very difficult times. Instead of all of us fighting our lonely battles and cutting across these boundaries, you also have the battles of livelihood, of workers' rights, of farmers' rights, of the rights of women, of the rights of Dalits, Adivasis, and so on. So we have to come together instead of fighting our battles all by themselves. And I think Gilani, in some sense, in the way in which he took up every cause of a human rights violation, of injustice with anybody, with equal gusto and with as much energy as he could muster, even after he was warned by his lawyer at that time that do not expose yourself so much because you have already faced an assassination attempt. You are not safe, but he never bothered about himself. He always went out and did what he could in all circumstances. So I think the best tribute to him would be to carry that legacy forward. And that's the only way in which we can move forward in a situation as grim as the one that we are facing today. So without taking up any more time, I'd like to end here. And I had promised, in case there's time at the end, that I might sing a song which we had sung for him on the eve of the High Court judgment that was to be delivered in 2004. And if there is time later on, maybe I could, just share that with all of you.
Is it possible to sing now with the flow? It will be great.
You want me to do it now? Okay. Yeah. I don't want to take up anyone else's time to speak, but anyway.
Oh, they will have their time.
All right. So this is the one that Neeraj Malik and I did in a packed room number 22 in the arts faculty. And the atmosphere was electrifying because we just didn't know what would happen the next day. So it is, of course, Faiz' well-known composition. Aaj bazaar mein pa bajaula chalo. Today, come in fetters to the marketplace. Come waving your hands, come exulting, come with dust on your hair, with blood on your clothes. That is, you can be beaten and you might be bleeding. And come, let us walk through the city of the beloved. There, the governor is watching, the wretched daybreak is there. And let us walk together in chains through the marketplace. And who else but we will take up our dare to speak up for our beloved. And let us once again gird our loins and go and face the executioner. Who else is left pure in the city but us? Who is deserving of the executioner's sword? आज बाजार में पाव झोला चलो, आज बाजार में पाव झोला चलो, चश्मे नम जानी शोरीदा काफी नहीं, तोहमते इश्क पोशीदा काफी नहीं, आज बाजार में पाव झोला ला चलो। हस्तो रफ शा चलो, मस्तो रक सा चलो, खाक बर सर चलो, बदा माँ चलो, राह तक ताह सब शहर जा ना चलो, आज बाजार में पाव जाऊं ला चलो। हाकिमे शहर भी मजमए आम भी, तीरे इल्जाम भी, संगे दुश्नाम भी, सुबह ना शाद भी, रोज ना काम भी, सुबह ना शाद भी, रोज ना काम भी, आज बाजार में पाव जाऊं ला चलो। इन कदम साज अपने सिवा कौन है, शहर जा नामे अब बा सफा कौन है, दस्ते का दिल के शाह या रहा कौन है, रखते दिल थाम लो, दिल फिगारों चलो, फिर हमी कत्ल हो आए यारों चलो, आज बाजार में, आज बाजार में पाव जाऊं ला चलो, पाव जाऊं ला चलो, पाव जाऊं ला चलो।
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful song. So now actually, before going to the next speaker, I just want to bring this. So we just started in Nilgiri Self-Respect Trade Union, Union for Sanitation Workers. So everyday life is losing our self-respect to get the self-respect of the trade union staffs. So it is the same with human rights also, like Hani Babu and Sai Baba, Rona, all of them who fought against the human rights violation, and they faced the worst kind of human rights violation. And it is on the top scale. I would bring SR Gilani Saab to experiences worst kind of human rights violation in traveling since the day the police knocked his door. I think that is something activists like us should know, that whosoever fights against for the human rights is the first person to lose his human rights to get human rights for others. So now I.